Hi, and welcome back to Music and Gear. Today we've got a really special guitar. We have a signature model by Epiphone, and when you order this particular signature model, it comes with the case. And this is the case the guitar comes with. This model is the Lifeson from Rush. This is his Les Paul signature model from Epiphone. So this particular case is a hard shell case. You see that it is hard. It's hard on the sides. And it has 4 latches. 1, 2, 3, and the 4th latch is on the back right here. And you do have to unlatch the 4th latch for the case to open. And yeah, you can ask me how come I know that. The latches feel very solid. When you flip the latch, it has a very solid engagement to the latch. I know a lot of people, when they carry their case, they've gotten into a habit of always taking their finger and keeping their finger on the side of the case as they carry it. That used to be a sign of a seasoned musician, because your case would open up and your guitar would fall out. In this case, these latches feel very secure. Not saying they would never pop open, but I would find it hard to believe that they would. Now let's flip the case around here. And let's take the first look. It is a stunning guitar. Before we take the guitar out of the case, I want to check the movement. See how well the guitar actually fits. And it is very snug. There is no playroom whatsoever. Moving it side to side, again, very snug. And this whole side is padded all the way around the guitar. It is a very good fit. The neck fits into this neck cradle right here, and the neck cradle is padded. Now, something I've noticed, when you get an aftermarket case, a lot of time you put the guitar down in the case, you set the guitar and the neck sits in the cradle. Then you take your hand and you can literally feel a gap between the bottom of the case and the bottom of the guitar. So the guitar is touching back here and on the neck, and it's just kind of sitting in there like that. What they've done is they have a ramp in here, and it's a padded ramp, and the back of the guitar is setting right on that ramp. So it is making contact here, here, and at the neck cradle. And the neck through here, there's just a little bit of a gap right there. The padding is under the neck, but it is very soft. So the case is definitely designed to go with this guitar. So we're going to set the guitar on the stand right here. We're going to look at the case inside a little bit. Right here's the ramp I was talking about. And it is padded. And then we have a storage compartment. And the little lip on this storage compartment says Epiphone right there. And it is padded as well. Inside, we have our tremolo bar. We have 2 Allen keys. And this particular guitar comes from Sweetwater. So when you order a guitar from Sweetwater, they do a 60-point inspection. And this is your 60-point inspection card. That's the serial number of the guitar and the person that did the inspection. Here's our case candy. Looks like we've got a Epiphone sticker, another Epiphone sticker, a Gibson hang tag, and a warranty card. And the hand tag and stuff is for retailers. They'll hang it on the tuning key so you can see that it is a Gibson product. And we also have a case key here. Now the candy that came with the Sweetwater order, I've already consumed. And if you didn't know it, when you purchase a guitar from Sweetwater, on the notes section, you can put, I only want, bit of honey. That's my favorite, the bit of honey. And when you receive your product from Sweetwater, you'll only get bit of honey. Most people don't know that. You can request just bit of honey or whatever other candy they have that you prefer. Looking at the case here, something I noticed, I usually buy molded cases by SKB. Since this guitar came with the case, I'm really not used to a non-rectangular case. So when I was looking at this, I noticed that they put feet on the bottom of the case, right here. They've also put feet on that side of the case, so you can stand it up. And if you're setting the case down like this, there are feet here. So they have feet on the case on every orientation that you're going to be setting the case down on. It's a nice touch, and it's quite stable. So if I set the case up, it sets right there. And at the beginning of the video, the guitar was in the case, set in this orientation to my right. Now, it's very easy to knock it over in that orientation, but it does stand up there. So if you had a bunch of cases, you could stand them up. And whenever I'm storing my guitar, I always try to store it with the bottom of the guitar down, so it's not hanging in midair. So the base of the guitar is in the case. That's another reason why it's very important that the case fit properly to the guitar for when you're not playing it. And a guitar at this price point, it's nice that it comes with a case because you're protecting your investment. Okay, now let's go over the guitar. This guitar, when I purchased it, it was $1,200. And I was one of the people that was on the waiting list for this guitar. I actually waited about 4 or 5 months for this guitar. I've been in possession of it for at least 6 months. And I've been wanting to review it, and I've been playing the guitar on and off for those 6 months. So this was the very first batch that Epiphone made. I can honestly say the first time I opened up the case and I saw this burl top, I was at awe at how beautiful the top is on this guitar. It is a veneer, but even though it's a veneer and not a solid maple top, when you look at it in the light, it does shift and morph just a little bit. It's not like a solid top, but it does shift and change just a little bit. Looking at the finish on the guitar, looking for orange peel from the spray, and the top on this guitar and the back on this guitar is super smooth. There is absolutely zero orange peel effect. And looking at the light, as the light shines across the top, it's a very even polish. I don't see any spots where it does this, where they've unevenly done the finish on the guitar. It is done extremely well. The back of the guitar, because this is not a solid one-piece mahogany guitar, they have picked pieces that stain very well together. I'm not seeing a lighter section and a darker section, and it's very hard to see the seam. But there is a seam right there. I can see that one. And I'm assuming that there's another seam over here somewhere, but I really can't see it. But I do see this straight line here, and I'm assuming that's a seam. It is done extremely well. Since we're on the back of the guitar, let's look at how our covers fit. Each cover is below the body about 1.5 millimeters. And each cover feels solid and tight and down on the guitar, and all the screws are set down even to the cover plates. And I don't see any screws that the head looks like it's out of skew. They all look like they're setting plumb and even to the tops. So that's nice. On the back of the guitar, we also have a belly carve right here. And the unique feature on this guitar is the Gibson Axcess cut neck to body joint. There is no heel. They have sanded the neck radius right into the back of the guitar. And it is very smooth and very nice. I see no checking or cracks anywhere through here in the seam joint. And it is very smooth. I don't feel a transition. Same with this side. And right here, I don't see an excessive buildup of polyurethane in the corner where it was sprayed. It is very nicely done. Looking at the top of the guitar, we do have a binding. This binding goes all the way around the perimeter. And it's very nice. It starts out with black, then goes white, then goes black, white, black, white, black, and then the outer white piece. And everywhere through here, the binding is even, flush, and true to the body. I have looked at this guitar and looked at this guitar, and the taped edge through here is very crisp. I don't see any bleed from where the stain or the paint was put on the guitar. It is a very crisp job all the way around. And it is very even. Looking at the offsets of each piece, I don't see a variation in the thickness where there was a glue buildup where they pulled the tape over to keep the binding in. It is done extremely well. Right here, this piece of binding goes up, and you can see the red that goes between the neck binding and the body binding. This is very good. Usually you'll see something in here. The tape work and the detail work that was done there, it's nice. The transition here is very smooth. And right here, sometimes on Gibson products, here and right here, you'll see a little bit of stain or some paint that got up on that binding, and it's not a crisp, clean edge. This guitar is spot on. It is very crisp, very clean. We do have two bugle button straps, one here and one on the bottom side of the guitar. And this one does align to the book match in the veneered maple, flame maple top. It's very nice. The sides of the guitar are just as nice as the top and back. It is just super smooth. The finish work on this guitar is truly top notch. We do have a round over right here, and I'm going to take a guess that it's about 3/16 of an inch round over. It does get a little tighter right here in the belly cut. We're going to say this is about an 1/8 inch round over. And they have broken the edge right here onto the belly cut to the back of the guitar. So that's not a sharp line, but it is sanded very well. I don't feel any humps or unevenness. It's well done. Now let's look at our route around our tremolo. Looking at our corners, I don't see any missteps. I don't see where the machine went in and there's a funny transition. The routing is done very well. We do not have the rubber pad inside the seat. A lot of times, a lot of companies will do that because of poor step overs on the machine. You can see where the machine stepped over and it routed it out. They have chosen to not do that, and actually stain that in there. And the finish in there is done very well. It's not as super smooth as the top. I do see a little variation in the finish going across, but it is highly polished, and I'm not seeing any debris down in the hole. The sides of the route look good as well. The front edge to the tremolo is setting parallel, so the bridge and the routing is true to itself to the set of the neck. Looking at our pickup rings, since this is an arch-top guitar, sometimes you'll see a gap in the pickup ring on how it fits the arch of the guitar. This guitar is done very well. There's no gap, and the rings fit down tight and even, and there's no bounce in the rings as well. It's done very well. Now let's check our pickups here. If I push on the pickup, it does move back and forth, but it always returns square and even to the pickup ring. And that's exactly the same with this pickup. As I move it, it does not get stuck. It floats and moves and returns as it should. We do have a three-way switch here for bridge, both pickups, and neck position. And the feel of the switch, when I first switched it, I noticed there was a difference. It does not have that metal clunk feel when it goes into position. It is very smooth feeling, and it has a very solid engagement. I don't think you would ever have a problem with the switch jumping out of position. It is a very nice switch. I like the switch. Going down to our volume and tone knobs, your two forward ones here, these two are your volumes, and they are super smooth. I'm not going to say that they're friction free, but they're very close to friction free. It takes very little effort to turn the knobs. If you're a pinky player, this particular knob is back behind the bridge here. Not saying you couldn't do it, but it is set back and up a little close to the bridge to reach down with your pinky and grab it. This one is a little far away, but it is definitely doable. Going to our tones, the tones feel smooth, but I do feel a difference in the tones. These two tones feel tighter than the volume. They're not as friction free as the volume knobs, but they are still very true as far as how they turn and how they feel. They feel nice and smooth. And looking at the knobs as we turn it, I see just a little wobble in this knob as you turn it. Just a little bit. These three here, I see zero wobble. And that is all about how the knob is pressed onto the potentiometer. That one does have just a little bit of a wobble to it. I'm sure if you pushed on it and reseated it just a little bit, let's try that. There it is. So if you see that, sometimes you can just kind of move it a little bit. It's not seated all the way down on the potentiometer. Going down our neck, the neck is bound. It has a white binding on it. And the back of the neck is high gloss. But feeling the binding to the gloss finish, this transition here, I cannot feel the seam. The transition is done very well. And the reason I point that out is this was taped and then stained. So there is a variation in height between these two materials. So when this was sprayed, that had to be sanded out and then sprayed over to even out the finish. It's done very well. We do have a binding around our headstock, And the binding around the headstock isn't quite as deep as the binding on the guitar. Since we have the black top on the headstock itself, the first layer starts with white, then goes to black, then to white, then to black, and then we have the outer band, which isn't as deep as our body band. If you look at the depth of the body band versus the depth of the headband, it is still very nice. This guitar actually does have the Gibson mustache top. It does not have the chamfered corner that Epiphone was doing. So this one's more Gibson-esque. Looking at the abalone inlays here, they're very smooth. I do feel the inlay, but it is smooth to the top. In this particular inlay in the light, there's blues, greens, purples, pinks. There's a lot of color in that abalone inlay. Sometimes you can get some dull ones and they don't sparkle and have all the color. This particular one looks pretty good. Our truss rod cover has Alex's signature on it, and that's the only spot that I've found on the guitar that actually has his name, is the truss rod cover. Now this guitar is equipped with a Floyd Rose, and our nut right here to the headstock and the binding on the guitar, the nut does stick out. I'm going to say a little bit more than 1/2 millimeter on the top and the bottom, but it does feel to be centered onto the neck. There is no string tree, and when I look at it, I'm looking at the angle of the nut coming out here to the angle going to the pins. We'll check this later. A lot of times with a locking nut, when you lock the nut down, it'll change the pitch of the tuning. But it looks like they've got the angle of the headstock right to match the angle of the seat of the Floyd Rose locking nut. It looks pretty good. We'll check that later to see how well they actually did. Going down the neck, we do have square inlays, so we do not have the trapezoid inlays. And something I noticed, these inlays are square on the corner. They don't have that little rounded spot. I'm sure it's still done with a CNC machine, but what they've done is they've went in with a chisel and they've cleaned that corner out and made it square and then set square inlays in. That takes a lot more time to do, to sit there and clean out every corner here. And since that's handwork, there's more chance, it's more likely that the technician that's doing the work can slip, and you'll see a little bit of putty in the corners. This guitar, the inlay work is just spot on. I can't see any filler at all in the neck. Now granted, this is an ebony fingerboard, and ebony will hide filler a lot easier than like a maple neck. But me looking at it, I don't see any filler. It's well done. The frets on the guitar, these are chamfered frets. And running my finger down the fretboard, there are 0 sharp frets. And looking at the end of the fret, I can see the chamfer from going this way onto the neck, and then they also chamfered around the radius right here. They are well done. They've actually also broken the edge of the binding here, so it's not a sharp corner. It actually has a break all the way down, and that break angle is caused by the chamfering tool. Okay, and then they've went in between the frets and here and broke that edge on the binding and the fingerboard. So it gives it a nice played in feel, and it's broken on the top and the bottom. It's very nice. We also have placement dots on the binding on the top. There is none on the bottom side, just on the top. Going over our tremolo here, let's put our bar in. And this is a thread in. This is not a push in. And I like to check the amount of play. And you can see I've got it pretty loose. It falls. When I play, I want it a little looser than that. There we go. And I'm going to check for play. How much play is in the bar before the tremolo actually moves? And there is a little bit of play there. Out at the end of the bar, it looks like it's moving about 1/16 of an inch. And I do feel it flopping in the piece here. So let's give it just a little bit more of a turn. Now there it's hanging, and the play is gone. As I move it, it is moving the tremolo. But the way I like it, with a little bit of playroom in the bar so it wobbles freely. There is a little bit of playroom in the bar. If you lock the bar back and you're doing flutters, it is set up to do fluttering. And since the routing is done behind the tremolo, this tremolo can go up in pitch and down in pitch. It's very nice. Looking at the finish on it, it is gold, and I'm not seeing any discolorization or oxidation or anything that says that the finish work isn't done well. Exact same thing with the pickups. All the gold hardware is very nice. And that's something that I missed. This guitar does come with actual Grover tuners. And the gold hardware is, again, very nice. And these tuners feel nice. I've been playing with it. I unlocked the bar and tinkered with them. They're very smooth and very precise. They're Grovers. They're going to be good tuners. I think that's just going to cover all our fit and finish on the guitar. I can't think of anything that I missed. The guitar is just stunning. It's a beautiful guitar. And I have not checked the frets on this guitar or anything. I have just been playing it. And I can honestly say this guitar plays fantastic. But that doesn't mean that the frets and everything are level. On this channel, we really go through guitars. So now we're going to take this guitar and we're going to give it the music and gear once over. We're going to check the pickup output, check the Henrys on the pickup, check the ohms on the pickups. We're going to check, see how the neck of the guitar is, how much relief the neck has, what's the action height, what's the radius on the neck, how well are the frets polished and dressed. We're going to look at the electronics, see how well the soldering was done, and then of course we're going to plug it in and hear what this actual guitar sounds like. So stay tuned. Okay, let's get some measurements on the neck. I've installed a tool under the tremolo to relax the strings a little bit. I don't want to unlock the nut just to get a measurement on the top. So hopefully this will give us enough playroom to where I can measure behind the first fret. So let me grab these two strings here and put the tool under it. And you can see that I did put some tape on my tool so I don't scratch the back of the neck of the guitar. And right behind the first fret, we have 21.5 millimeters. Now let's get a thickness here at the 12th. And at the 12th, it appears to be 25 millimeters. Let's get a width right behind the nut. And the caliber saying 43 millimeters. At our 12th, it's saying 53 millimeters. And then at our very last fret, it's saying 57.5. Okay, now it's time to check the action height and the radius of the ebony fingerboard. On the Epiphone site, Epiphone claims this is a 12-inch radius, so I do have my 12-inch radius tool, and we're just going to verify that. And it is definitely a 12-inch at the base. And it is a 12-inch at the top. Okay, I now have my action gauge. And since this guitar did go through Sweetwater's inspection, they could have changed the setup on the guitar. So on the 12th, we have 0.075 on the low E. And our high E is 0.065. So that's a little higher than standard. Most guitars come in at 0.07, 0.06. That's an average. So this is just a fraction higher than the average setup that I see from factories. Alright, now it's time to put the gauge on the neck, and let's check how the guitar was actually set up. I have my gauge right here. Most Les Pauls are 24.75. So let's put the gauge on the neck. And let's check the neck relief. And looking at the neck, it appears to have about 1 millimeter of relief. That's a little more than I normally put in the guitar, but that's how I received it from Sweetwater. Now, everyone's favorite part. We're going to go through and we're going to check all these frets with a fret leveler. I'm going to go into squirrel mode, and I'll go out of squirrel mode if I find a bad fret. And right there, I do have just a little bit of rock in the fret rocker. And it disappears right there. So over the low E and high E. And right there. And it's just like the last spot. It is just barely rocking. But it is there. And it's gone right there. And just a little bit right there, dead center. So it looks like just dead center right here. And it is just barely rocking, but I am pointing it out. So what we found here, we do have a small spot down here. 99.9% of the people would call that spot good. The two spots up here, it's just barely rocking. You would never have an issue with these two spots up here. This one's the A and the E, and I believe the G and the D on this other spot. But again, it was just barely rocking. The fretwork is done very well. It's not perfect. These two spots up here could very easily be touched up if you wanted to make it perfect with like a Stumac fret kisser. But it is just barely rocking. Try to find that spot again. Right there. It's just barely rocking. You would really have to slam the action, and even at that rate, I doubt very seriously that it would buzz. So I'd say the fret leveling on the guitar is actually done pretty well, even though we found two spots, and well, I'll say three, because this one does rock just ever so slightly. Now looking at the crowning on the frets, basically I'm using the light and I'm looking for the flat spot from where they ran the leveling tool across the frets and how well they re-crowned the frets after leveling. And I do see a flat spot on the frets. It's a little under a 32nd of an inch. And the crowning looks nice on these frets. I'm not seeing where it comes up and just comes across flat and then arcs down. It has a nice crown. And they look very consistent from fret to fret to fret. As far as tooling marks on the frets, not really seeing any tooling marks. The feel on the frets is very good. They're not scratchy. I would say 90% of the people would like the feel of this fret. It's not glass smooth and it's not scratchy. It's right in the center. I would say if you like the glassy feel, this guitar is going to play in eventually and get very, very smooth. But from the factory, it's well done. It's definitely not scratchy. The frets do have a nice shine to them, so I would say they were definitely polished. And the end of the frets are dressed nicely. There are no sharp frets. Okay, I now have the guitar plugged into our multimeter. We're going to check the Henrys and the ohms. Now, this guitar is set up where we can split the coils, bridge, neck, and we also have a phase switch. So I have all the volumes and the tones all the way up. Let's go to our bridge position. We are on ohms. So in humbucker mode, it is reading 8.72, 8.73. If we split the coil, it is now reading 4.47. Both pickups together as humbuckers, they're reading 5.15. If we split the bridge, it changes to 3.30. If both are split, it's 2.63. And just the bridge split gives us 3.69. Going up to our neck position, in humbucker mode, it is 12.56. And if we split the coil, it is reading 6.41. Now we're going to check the Henrys. And in humbucker mode, neck position, we're at 5.48. If we split the coil, it drops it down to 2.61, 2.62. In the center position, both humbuckers were at 2.64. If we split the bridge, that brings us down to 1.63. Both humbuckers split brings us down to 1.23. Bridge as a humbucker, neck split, 1.73. And in our bridge position, 4.90. And splitting the bridge pickup, we have 2.29 Henrys. Okay, I've placed the guitar on our scale. It is in grams, and it is reading 4,306 grams. And in pound ounces, that's 9 pounds, 7.9 ounces. Okay, I now have the guitar plugged into my Robertson strobe tuner, and we're going to check the intonation and the first fretted note. First, we're going to start out with our low E. There we go. Low E on the 12th. Open. 12th. And we can see that it's set a little high. There's our open. First fretted note. And the first fretted note is sharp as well. There's our A. A on the 12th. Open. And that one is spot on. There's our open. And the A sharp is a fraction sharp. There's our D. D on the 12th. Open. And I would say the D is a fraction sharp. First fretted note. And our D sharp is a fraction sharp as well. There's our G. G on the 12th. Just a fraction sharp. First fretted note. And our G sharp is sharp. There's our B. B on the 12th. Open. 12th. And just a fraction sharp. Open. First fretted note. And our C is a fraction sharp as well. Here's our high E. High E on the 12th. Open. then the high E appears just to be a fraction sharp. You see it's very close. Open, first fretted note. Open, and the F, when you first strike it, goes sharp. I would say you could take a little bit of material off the locking nut and get this guitar just a little bit better. The low E string does need the saddle pulled back just a little bit, but overall it's a decent setup. Okay, now comes the time where we really get to see how well the guitar was manufactured. Opening up these covers and looking in to where most people don't look, this is usually a tattletale sign of fast guitars. That means they were built fast and ran out the door. What we want to look for is how well the soldering is done, what type of components they're using, and if the tooling path on the CNC machines look good. So I'm going to go into squirrel mode and I'm going to remove these 3 cover plates. Okay, let's take the first cover off. And we can see that there is no shielding tape on the electronics cover. Looking in here, we can see that they're using a quick connect system. We do have a, wow, that pot right there is loose. We can see that right there. So from the factory we do have one loose pot. Let's check this one. Check that one. Nope. So we do have one loose pot. Looking at our solder joint right here, we can see that this one was up to temperature and it has a nice sheen to it. Looking at our other bonding locations, those all look good. They do have shrink tubing over that connection. Now let's look at our route here. It looks very clean. I don't see any step over marks. And this surface here is semi-smooth. There is a little bit of grit, but not near as bad as I've seen on some guitars. And the side of the cavity here is also quite smooth. It's not smooth like the back of the guitar, but it was definitely sprayed out before the urethane went in. So the only thing I'm seeing here is this one loose pot. Let's go up to our tremolo cavity. And that's quite funny. That has shielding tape on it. Looking at our tremolo cavity here, we do have 3 springs, and I can see the ground wire coming up through the center here, going up and bonding to our claw. And looking at the back of the claw, I do see a 3/7 on the back of the block here, and I do see the Floyd Rose stamp. So this is a 37 millimeter block. It is not a brass block, but it is a 37 millimeter block. Now, something I have seen on other guitars is sometimes these screws will get bent, so I just want to give them a turn and make sure that they are straight. Yes, that screw is good. No wobble on either screw. So let's go up and check this cavity. No shielding on that cavity cover. Now looking in here, we do have a nice bond here. It has a lot of sheen to it. And the ground coming from here to here, they have tinned all the way back to the PVC jacket. And these connections look good. Again, about the exact same amount of particulate in the cavity. I'm not seeing any step over marks. So the routing looks really nice. In this cavity here, I do see a slight step over mark right here from a different tool path. But I don't see any step down marks here. And there is a ramp from here to here where the bottom of the cavity ramps down. But all in all, the routing work is done very, very nicely. I'm not seeing anything bad. It looks well done. Okay, I fixed the pot here. I tightened it down real quick and easy. It's a push-pull pot, so I'll pop the knob off, tighten the nut. While I had the covers off, I have put copper shielding tape on them. So we're going to reinstall those. And this one's round, so the easiest way to do that is you got to poke one through like that and get it started. And the rest of them will self-align. So I'm not going to run that one down tight. We're just going to get it started. So now I'm going to go back into squirrel mode and reinstall all these covers. Okay, now it's time to move on to the demo section. Okay, I now have the guitar plugged into my SGX 2000 Express made by Applied Research Technology. Now in the effects loop we are running an AMR PV tube sweetener and a 362 BBE sonic maximizer. Our power amp is a BK Butler 6L6 Pro valve, and that is running into 4 greenback Celestion drivers. We are on a clean channel. I'm in the bridge, and we're in humbucker mode. Everything's all the way up. We're just going to do some basic chords. Bridge position, split. Center position, humbucker mode. Now I'm going to split the bridge pickup. Splitting both pickups. Just splitting the neck pickup. And the neck pickup in humbucker mode. Okay, all the settings are exactly the same. We're going to start out in our bridge position. Everything's still all the way up. I'm just going to do some basic chording. We're still on the clean channel. Now we're going to split the bridge pickup. Up to our center position, humbucker mode. Now I'm splitting the bridge pickup and leaving the neck as a humbucker. Splitting both pickups. Making the bridge a humbucker and splitting the neck. Up to our neck position, humbucker mode. Now I'm splitting the neck pickup. Now I'm leaving all the amp settings exactly the same, and I have a Yo-Yo American distortion pedal, and it's set up for crunch right now. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to engage the Yo-Yo American distortion pedal. All our tones and volumes are all the way up. We are in humbucker mode, starting out in the bridge. our distortion back a little bit. Bridge position, split. Now we're in our center position, humbucker mode. I am splitting the bridge pickup. Both pickups split. Humbucker bridge, split neck. Up to our neck position, humbucker mode. Neck position, split coil. Okay, I have now changed my applied research technology over to channel 53, which is my high gain channel. And we're going to just do some goofing off in the high gain channel. Do the exact same thing, but now I'm going to split the coil on the bridge. Now we're going up to our center position, humbucker mode. Exact same thing, I'm splitting the coil on the bridge position. Now I'm splitting both coils. Now I'm making the bridge a humbucker and the neck a single coil. Up to our neck position, humbucker mode. Neck position, split coil. Okay, all I've basically done, if you watch the meter here, I've just given the amp a little bit more volume. It's a tube amp. Tube amps like volume, so they break up a little differently under higher volumes. Okay, that's going to finish up our demo on the Les Paul. Now it's time to get into final thoughts on this guitar. First, let's go over some issues that we found. We found 3 high frets. They were just barely high, but it's my job to point those details out to you. Would they ever cause a problem? No. They were just barely high, but they're there. The second issue we found, we had one potentiometer that was not tightened from the factory, and it was moving just a little bit. It's an easy fix, but that particular problem should have never, ever happened. That should be something that's checked at the factory before it's sent out to make sure the potentiometers are nice, square, and tight. Now let's go over all the good. This is not just a Les Paul with a Floyd Rose slap to it. They did their homework. The angle of the neck coming out of the body to get the Floyd Rose to sit proper in its ramp, because this is an arch top, to get the Floyd Rose to sit proper here, to get the right angle coming off of the string up to the neck, is spot on. The neck angle, as far as the way it's pitched back to match the nut, again, they did their homework. It is extremely close. Only the low E goes out just a little bit when you turn the locking nut, and that's an easy fix, just going in here and cleaning it up. But the other 5 strings are good, so I would say it's probably something in this particular nut, maybe a burr, but the angle is set and designed for a Floyd Rose. The fret dressing on this guitar is top notch. There are no sharp frets. The chamfering they've done on this binding over to the ebony fretboard, I like a lot. It has a nice broken in feel. The guitar is nice to play. I've played it hours and hours straight, and I don't get sore fingers or a problem right here from sliding down. It's well done. The inlay work on the guitar, again, it's top notch. I could not find any filler. The binding on the guitar, again, it's top notch. Really can't find any issues with the binding. The tape work from the spray and stain work is done very well. The ebony inlays are done very well. Has really nice color. It comes from the factory with Grover tuners. These tuners are very smooth. They work well. I unlocked the nut, took everything out of whack, retuned the guitar, reset all these, because I've been playing it for about 3 months now. And I've had the opportunity to play with the tuners, play with the fine tuners here. Everything's very smooth. Even the fine tuners here. Sometimes you'll get like a scratchy feel to them. This bridge is very nice. The tuners work well. As far as the spring and the action of the bridge, again, it's matched very well. The springs that they've chose to use with the 37-inch height block works well. It flutters, it bends. It's not so stiff that it doesn't move, but it's not so loose that when you do palm mutes, the tremolo's bouncing back and forth. The finish on the guitar is just beautiful. There is 0 orange peel on this guitar. It is a high polished guitar. With that being said, it really shows fingerprints. When you touch it, it shows the fingerprints. It also shows dust. Really, really bad. Any kind of dust, it shows. Maybe it's the red, I don't know, but if it's clean, it's beautiful. Now earlier I said this was a flame maple top. In reality, this is a quilted maple top. And it does morph and shift just a little bit. Now keep in mind, this is not a solid quilted top. This is a veneer. But even though it's a veneer, it does move just a little bit. And it is a book match top, so there's a seam right here. It's very nice. All in all, with the Axcess cut back here, allowing for easy access to the higher notes, this is a nice guitar. Right now this guitar is retailing, I believe, at like $1,300. It's really not my place to say whether or not the guitar is worth that. I'll qualify it by saying this. If I had to build this guitar to this quality level, there's no way I could do it, buy the parts, assemble it, and get to this production quality at $1,300. The pickups in the guitar sound good. It doesn't sound like your typical beefy Les Paul. I was able to get some Strat sounds out of it, some older Crunchie tones out of it. You know, can still get the Les Paul tones out of it. But with the split coils and this phase switch, it's just endless tones that you can get from this guitar. It truly surprised me, being a Les Paul, what it sounded like in some of the positions that I played around with. It is truly a working man's guitar. This thing will give you a lot of different sounds, and it'll give them to you easily. If you bought one of these guitars and you had a completely different experience with it, you bought yours and you had problems with it, I want to hear from you. I want you to post down below and list out the problems that you had with the guitar. Again, if you bought one of these and you had a similar experience, your guitar is just really a next level instrument, I want to hear from you as well. This channel is about information about products. The more people that post down below about this particular instrument, the more information is available for someone thinking about purchasing it. I guess my final thoughts are, years ago I played Epiphone, and I wasn't much of an Epiphone fan. I can honestly say this company has really stepped up their game. This is a fantastic playing instrument, and it may say Epiphone, but this thing plays really nice. I can't imagine a Gibson, which cost, I think the Gibson like this is at $5,500. I can't imagine that Gibson playing 1% better than this guitar. And at this price point versus the Gibson, it really becomes a no-brainer. Anyway, if you haven't already, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. These highly detailed videos on these reviews take a tremendous amount of time to do. And looking at YouTube's analytics, 80% of the people that watch my reviews aren't subscribed. So again, think about subscribing and hit that like button. And thank you for watching this video.